What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. There are your horns again for the third time this week. Those horns are working overtime. We got episodes already this week with Christian Gonzalez. Go check out last episode of Next Pats with Kurt Warner. Great stuff on Drake May and Josh McDaniels and that marriage and how that thing's going to work. And we've got another great episode for you here today. We're talking to Solomon Wilcots about Tee Higgins. Is he a number one receiver? Is he somebody worth paying through the nose for? If you are the New England Patriots, Solomon Wilcots, former Cincinnati Bengal himself, longtime NFL brain worth picking for us, as we do just about every year around this time, because he is a staple on Radio Row, and there's a reason why. Guy knows ball, and the guy knows the Cincinnati Bengals, and he knows Tee Higgins, and he's going to throw one stat at you that I think might just blow your mind going into the weekend. So apologies for that. But a very impressive stat when it comes to Tee Higgins and the kind of centerpiece he can be for any offense, especially the Patriots when they need as much receiver help as they need. So great conversation there with Solomon Wilcots. We're also bringing on Malcolm Butler, of all people. Malcolm Butler, 10 years removed from the interception that saved the Super Bowl for the New England Patriots against the Seattle Seahawks. Also, a former Mike Vrabel employee. And so he gives us great insight into who Vrabel will be as a coach and what will make him, in his opinion, a good coach here in New England. But before we get to those conversations, I do just want to highlight something that we were able to talk about a little bit earlier this week on Early Edition. Myself, Tommy Curran, Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, talking about the greatest challenge Mike Vrabel faces this offseason. Is it about getting the coaching staff together and thinking in harmony? Is it about unifying the front office? Taking Ryan Cowden and Elliott Wolf and all the others that are holdovers from the previous regime and helping them work together while he works his way into the mix there as well when it comes to personnel decisions. Is it about the draft? For me, it's actually none of those things that's at the very top of the list. At the very top of the list for Mike Vrabel, the biggest challenge will be who to spend your money on. Because for Mike Vrabel, there is this incredibly difficult, in my opinion, needle he has to thread. This team obviously needs talent. There is no question about it. They have a lot of work to do in that regard, and they know it. But how do you strike that balance? How do you thread that needle of talent procurement and culture development? Because those are symbiotic elements to your organization moving forward, Mike Vrabel. Meaning, how you acquire talent and who you acquire and what you pay to the people you do acquire and the choices you make in terms of the people you choose to make your highest paid individuals in that Patriots locker room. That impacts your culture. And for a culture guy, we talked about this culture guy revolution that's been going on in the NFL. You look at Dan Campbell, you look at Mike Vrabel, you look at Aaron Glenn. It's not all offensive coordinators with tight pants and play sheets in their hands that are becoming the next great head coaches in this league. There is a little bit of a revolution happening there, and I think Mike Vrabel is part of it. So if you're a big culture guy and you care about that, and you care about accountability, and you care about making statements with your actions as the leader of the organization, as the head coach, and as the guy with what we all believe will be the quote-unquote hammer when it comes to personnel decisions. He's the boss, Vrabel is. And so if you're that person and you have these massive decisions to make with massive sums of money at your disposal, how do you go about doing it? Because when Mike Vrabel was in Tennessee, and granted, he didn't have the kind of personnel power that I am anticipating that he will have here in New England, though I'm sure he was influential. Can't exactly see Mike Vrabel taking a backseat to anyone when it comes to a football decision when he's a really important person in the organization as he was in Tennessee, even if he wasn't entitled the general manager. And even if he wasn't able to make decisions like the ones on A.J. Brown or that first year with Rand Carthon, where he ends up ultimately losing that power struggle, is what it looked like, and finding himself out of a job briefly. So let's not pretend he's the only one making the decisions on the personnel moves in Tennessee. That's the fine print here. But while he was in Tennessee, They did not make a habit of spending money, big money at least, on outside free agents. It was Malcolm Butler in Vrabel's first year as head coach in 2018, and it was Bud Dupree a few years later, the pass rusher, that they got from the Steelers. That was basically it in terms of long-term, big money additions. The players they paid while Vrabel was there were the players they knew. The players who are already part of the culture that they were trying to foster and continue in Nashville. Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, Jeffrey Simmons. Guys they already had. Guys they knew well. Guys whose work habits they had studied and been able to appreciate in person. That felt like the kind of person, the kind of player they really wanted to spend their money on. And that's not unique to Mike Vrabel or unique to the Tennessee Titans at the time. Every organization would like to operate that way if they can. But if we try to take that experience that Vrabel had there and whatever influence he may have had over the course of those years he was there as head coach and apply it to what the Patriots are dealing with now, I do find it interesting. And I am wondering how willing he's going to be to make somebody like Tee Higgins, for example, the highest paid player in his locker room. What kind of message are you sending? You are in the nascent stages of cultural development here in New England for your Mike Vrabel-led program. And so whoever you decide to make your highest paid guy, or wherever you decide to spend this $110+ million in cap space that you have this offseason, you're letting your team know what you value. And so do you have to be careful? If it were me, I'm spending on Tee Higgins. I'm sorry. You need that help. And I'm spending on Ronnie Stanley too. And I'm making them offers that might seem absurd to some degree. $30 million for Tee Higgins, $20 million for Ronnie Stanley toward the end of his career per year. Right? Who knows in terms of guaranteed dollars. Maybe it's 20 guaranteed for Ronnie Stanley, 40 over 2 years. Maybe it's Tee Higgins, 65 guaranteed, $120 million over the life of the deal. These sound like absurd numbers, especially for guys who certainly have questions. Although we're going to get into it with, again, Solomon Wilcots, and he's going to tell us why you should look at Tee Higgins as a true number one receiver. But Tee Higgins hasn't won anything in the NFL. He's had the benefit of working alongside Jamar Chase, where teams are going to be steering their coverage toward Chase more than they are toward Higgins. And yeah, he's played without Chase, and he's had some really good games. We've talked about it on this podcast. 6 games, averages over 100 yards in those games without Chase. It's a pretty small sample. So, not the perfect player. I'm still willing to pay that guy because, quite frankly, I don't have to worry about the ramifications that may have on my locker room the same way I think Mike Vrabel will. And I'm not saying that Tee Higgins is a bad guy. You're going to hear actually the complete opposite of that from Solomon Wilcots. All I'm saying is, are you sure you want to make him the premier player in your program as you're trying to get this thing off the ground? That's the kind of thing that I wouldn't worry about, but I wonder if Mike Vrabel does. And so let's keep that in the backs of our minds as we get into the offseason here and we go to the combine in a couple weeks and we start hearing about some of the contract offers that are being made. Is Mike Vrabel of the same mind where he looks at this roster and says, by any means necessary, we can swallow hard and pay Tee Higgins whatever he needs. We can swallow hard and pay Ronnie Stanley whatever he needs. I don't know any of these guys. I haven't been with any of them. And so what's the difference to me if it's paying our own versus paying someone new? They're all new to me. And so if I like how this guy looks from the outside, from afar, because that's all I can do right now as a new head coach with a new team, then I'm willing to pay him because we need talent that badly. I've watched the tape on these guys, and we are desperate. And so for us to have any kind of success and for us to get this culture off the ground, we need to win games. That has to be the priority. The culture stuff can come later. Does he think that way? Because if he does, boy, Vrabel and I, simpatico. I'll tell you what. Because I think that's how they should be approaching this offseason. But I do wonder if that's how he will actually approach this offseason, or if he will be more concerned with getting his guys and getting the right kinds of players and the right kind of attitude and character. And not only that, because again, I think Tee Higgins would fulfill those categories in a satisfactory kind of way, given what we've heard about him. But do you want to make that big, bold statement with the dollar figures? Because in theory, we've heard Scott Pioli talk about it before. We've heard others that have been associated with this Patriots program before. You want your highest paid players to not only be your best players, you want them to be your hardest workers, you want them to be your greatest examples for everyone else in the locker room. And so Bill Belichick was always careful about that. It was what made Tom Brady, one of the things, not the thing, but one of the things that made Tom Brady so valuable to Bill Belichick was best player, hardest worker, and there was always a cap on how much he was making, which put a cap on everybody else. How you spend your money tells not only us in the media, the fan base, ownership, but it tells the guys in that locker room. Maybe most importantly, it tells the guys in that locker room what you value. And so do you have to be careful with how you make those statements in the next few weeks and months as the Patriots build their roster for the first time under Mike Vrabel? That's his biggest challenge. Adding talent while developing the kind of culture that he wants. And I'm fascinated to see how he does it. All right, let's get to our conversation with Solomon Wilcots now. We're going to hear all about Tee Higgins, all about the man who's about to be paid ungodly sums of money, whether it's in Cincinnati, New England, or somewhere else, to be a top-flight receiver in 2025 and beyond. Here's our conversation from Radio Row with Solomon Wilcots. Very excited now to have with us on the podcast, friend of the podcast, Solomon Wilcots, and Dr. Derek Jones. Doctor, you have a very important message for us in terms of knee cartilage repair and a procedure that you want to tell us about. Maybe share the message with the people out there in case they're dealing with their own issues at home, and tell us what you can about this procedure.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, articular cartilage is that grizzle on the end of a chicken bone, that white stuff. It can have potholes in it, causes swelling, pain, mechanical dysfunction in a knee. We now have a way arthroscopically to put that back in through small incisions, keep those cells, your own cells, alive, and regrow those potholes back to normal articular cartilage.
It's really impressive. And Solomon, can you tell us your experience with this and how you're connected?
Well, we've seen patients who have been treated with the Macy procedure. Now, this procedure is done arthroscopically, and so it's fairly new, but it has been approved by the FDA. And just think about it. Those people who are experiencing cartilage damage, they can take your own cells, they can grow it in a lab, and then it readheres. Once they go back in and put it back in, it readheres to the healthy tissue and to the bone. It keeps you from deteriorating and rubbing bone on bone where you have to have knee replacement surgery. So this is a new innovative treatment. You can go to the website at maci.com, maci.com, to find out more about the procedure and find a doctor in your area.
Is this the kind of thing, doctor, that you say bone on bone? Obviously, that's something a lot of NFL guys have dealt with over the years. I think about somebody who's in our field now, Julian Edelman in New England, who we're very familiar with. He basically had to cut his career short. He had a nice career, but cut it short because of knee issues. Is this the kind of procedure you could see NFL guys using, if they're not already, using it moving forward to help them extend their careers?
Yeah, it brings up a great option for NFL players, because before we used to have to use large incisions. And as you know, in the NFL, that's something that may change your contract status and your ability to get back on the field more quickly. We're hoping that we can get people back on the field more quickly with smaller incisions, arthroscopically doing something we used to do other procedures that tried to treat this. Now we can treat it with your own cells, regrow this cartilage without having to make big incisions. So I think it's something that will be possible for NFL players to use in the future.
Really interesting, especially for players, for teams that are looking for any way they can to help these guys get on the field, stay on the field.
That's right.
Solomon, I do want to ask you about somebody who has at times, how's this for a transition, has at times had trouble staying on the field, yet we talk about him all the time. He's about to be a free agent. You know that Cincinnati Bengals organization so well, and you have watched Tee Higgins now for a number of years be one of the better receivers in the league, despite the fact that he's on a team with a guy who might be the best receiver in the league, in Jamar Chase. The Patriots have a lot of money to spend this offseason. Should they spend a lot of it on Tee Higgins, paying him like one of the best receivers in football, in your opinion?
Well, he is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. There is no doubt about it. You got to understand, he came in that 2020 draft class. The first pick for the Cincinnati Bengals was Joe Burrow. Their second pick they used that year was Tee Higgins, right? And so they've been together every single year of their careers. They played together in the NFL. Tee Higgins has an 80% touchdown to first down catch rate or catch percentage. So 80% of his receptions throughout his career have gone for either a first down or a touchdown.
Wow.
That's an incredible number. He has a tremendous pass-catching radius. He's not slow. He can get deep. More importantly, you could be in his hip pocket and like a power forward, this guy's coming down with the ball. So he has great range. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a hard worker. I'm telling you right now, if he ends up leaving, you're going to have to pay him a whole heck of a lot of money. He's going to get an offer from the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow has spoken, and Joe Burrow tends to get what he wants.
Do you worry at all about some of the soft tissue stuff that he's dealt with over the last few years? I think he's missed somewhere in the range of 5 games or so each of the last couple of years. Is that becoming a trend that teams, prospective teams, should be worried about if they want to sign him?
No, I don't think it's a problem. I mean, he's missed a couple of games at the beginning of the year. I think he missed a couple. Then somewhere in the end, I think he missed it. But then guess what? When he came out and played, look at what he did in the game against the Denver Broncos. It was spectacular. 3 touchdown receptions in that game. He has proven that when he's asked to be the number one, say when Jamar Chase has been out, when he has been asked to be the number one guy, he has had tremendous production. When he has not been the number one and all of the catches and all of the throws are going toward Jamar Chase, he's been a great teammate. He has not caused a ripple. All he's done is wait patiently, knowing that sooner or later the production is going to come back his way, right? The workload is going to come back to him, and every single time he has answered. What we found is that the guy's a great teammate. He knows how to fit in. He knows how to function as a number 2 if he has to be that. But if he's asked to be the number 1, you're going to see an explosion in his production.
That's maybe been the most surprising thing to me, is to see some of those numbers when Jamar Chase hasn't been on the field. He still averages over 100 yards receiving per game. So that does speak to he can be a number 1 if he's asked to be the number 1. Before we let you go, Solly, have to ask you. Obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles here. But we talk a lot about the Chiefs back in Boston and their assault on the Patriots. And the Patriots' pursuit of forever being the greatest dynasty the league has ever seen.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs stay on this pace, they've got a real claim to being able to say that for themselves. You have one game to win, and you could pick one quarterback in his prime. It's either Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady. Who are you picking?
I'm picking Tom Brady. I'm picking Tom. Look, I've just seen Tom do it time and time again. I saw him do it early in his career, first year as a starter. We saw him do it late in his career, doing a 20-year run with the New England Patriots. And then he jumped to another team, a whole bunch of guys that he didn't even know, and then he did it again. 7 times. I mean, I'm not going to argue against that. I saw him in one of the greatest halves of football I've ever seen played. Trailing by 25 points at halftime against the Atlanta Falcons, and you come back and win. You score on every single possession in the second half and overtime, and you win it going away. This dude is the best. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Look, got to give Patrick Mahomes a lot of credit. He landed in a great spot with Andy Reid. That team was already a winner. Alex Smith was already winning, right, when he was inserted into the lineup. And now you saw exponential growth, and they became the winning team. But where Brady took the Patriots from to where they were for 20 years, guys, let's face it. If you look at 20 years compared to the 7 since Mahomes has been the starter, Mahomes is just getting started, man. That's like 1/3 of Brady's career.
That sound we hear right now, that's the standing ovation you're getting from all of our listeners, our audience on YouTube.
Right?
They're standing up and they're clapping vociferously for Solly Wilcots because he chose Brady over Mahomes. Solly, thank you so much. Dr. Derek Jones, thank you so much. And listeners, Macy.com,
That's right.
MACI.com for
right.
more info on knee cartilage repair. Some great intel from both of these guys. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Unbelievable stat. How about that stat? 80% first downs and touchdowns from Tee Higgins. Patriots could use that for a team that I know will, even though Mike Vrabel was run heavy in Tennessee, there's no question. He's going to want to support that quarterback that he has, because that quarterback that he has might have more promise than any quarterback Mike Vrabel has coached before. And so adding the kind of player that Solomon Wilcots is describing there in Tee Higgins, that could help that quarterback get to the highest of highs that Vrabel is surely hoping that May will reach during Vrabel's tenure here as head coach. All right, let's get to our conversation now with Malcolm Butler. On the other side, we're going to talk a little bit about my most recent mock draft. We sprinkled in a little hint in our last Next Pats podcast as to which player we should be talking about more inside the top 5, the top 10, depending on where the Patriots land. Are they able to trade back? Well, we've got a trade, and we've got an under-the-radar player that I was foreshadowing a bit that the Patriots could take, that the Patriots could see as a great fit for their defense in our most recent mock draft. You can find that thing on NBCSportsBoston.com if you haven't already. We have 2 picks in the second round to go over as well. So let's listen to Malcolm Butler, then get to the mock draft. Here's Malcolm. So excited now to have with us friend of the podcast, Patriots legend, Malcolm Butler. Malcolm, thanks for stopping by, man.
Hey, man, I got to.
It's always great to see you.
You make sure you stop by Church's Chicken.
Church's Chicken. You're here with Church's Chicken. You've got the cup. It's very well placed. You've done this whole thing before. You're an unbelievable pitch man. Tell us about Church's Chicken.
Hey, it's I've been eating Church's Chicken for a long time, and I go to church twice on Sundays.
Stop it.
Church's and Church's Chicken.
There we go. And if the people at home knew that Church's Chicken was the reason why you were able to make that unbelievable interception 10 years ago. Can you believe it was 10 years ago now? I think people would be buying it by the bucketful. Can you believe that was 10 years ago? It feels like yesterday.
I cannot believe that it was 10 years ago. I cannot believe that, and that make me realize that you got to take advantage of each and every opportunity you can, and take advantage of every day, because life goes fast, man. It actually feels like yesterday.
What's been the biggest change in your life since that day?
Everything, man. Carrying yourself properly, like you're supposed to do that anyway. But like people knowing you,
in an instant,
you
became a household name in 1 millisecond.
Yeah. You held to a higher standard. People just grab at you, and like you just got to get used to it, as I have. So. Yeah. Well,
you went on to have a great career. I remember talking to you all throughout that season, your rookie season, in the locker room. You didn't care. There was 100 media people in there every day, but nobody really came by your locker to bother you because you were Malcolm Butler. Nobody knew you at that point, but it was great to get to talk to you, get to know you a little bit as a rookie before you made that play. I want to ask you about a step that you made after the Patriots when you're going to play for the Tennessee Titans and you're playing for Mike Vrabel. You need to tell us about Mike Vrabel because he's now the head coach in New England, obviously, and we need a little bit more insight on him. What makes Mike Vrabel a good coach, in your opinion, Malcolm?
Mike Vrabel is a great coach because he is. Bill Belichick is a great coach because he is. Like, you can't hide greatness. You can't hide hard work. But I'll tell you this, Mike Vrabel is a player's coach. He relates to his players. He'll go out there and run routes with his players or try to knock the ball out of players' hand. Like, let's not get it twisted. The Titans almost went to the Super Bowl.
Of course.
Against the Chiefs. Last time, the Tennessee Titans got close to the Super Bowl. What, it was the Music
City Miracle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So that explains everything about Mike Vrabel.
So you say he's a player's coach. He's hard to play for, though, isn't he?
No, not really. As long as you're there to do your job and he going to hold you accountable and just do your job. That's it.
Very, very similar to the other guy you played for. Last thing before we let you go.
He more nice. He's more nice.
He's a little nicer than Bill?
Yeah,
Last thing,
100%.
because I know you got to go. You're a very busy man. You're going to play our Jumbo Gumbo game that we have here. You're going to pull out the ladle. You're going to scoop out a football. Or he just went right in with his hands. I like that. He doesn't need the ladle. He doesn't care. He's not afraid about getting burned. What number did you end up there with, Malcolm? Because you have a number on that football. I'm going to read you the question that's associated with that number. What do you got?
249. No, I'm playing. 26.
We're in trouble. We're in trouble if that's the case. 26. Which celebrity would you want to narrate your life story, Malcolm? Great question, because it's an unbelievable life story, and it may be narrated by someone famous someday. Who do you got?
Denzel Washington, baby.
Denzel Washington. That's a great choice. That's a great choice. Malcolm Butler, thank you so much for stopping by, man. We know you're a busy guy, but we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I really appreciate Malcolm Butler being on with us. 10 years since that interception in Phoenix against the Seattle Seahawks. I will never forget seeing that in real time and the thoughts going off in my brain as somebody who's trying to write on deadline for a website, as somebody who's on the first year or in their first year on the beat and trying to process all that, and watching this guy, Malcolm Butler, who I had gotten to know all year in the Patriots locker room because he was one of the few players that year that actually was willing to just hang out in the locker room. Think about all of the veterans and think about just Bill Belichick, sort of the height of Bill Belichick, not wanting guys to speak out of turn, and had multiple run-ins with players who didn't like things that I had written that season because Belichick had called them out at different points in the year for saying something that he felt they shouldn't be saying about a teammate or an opponent. Little things that you would think to yourself, really? Belichick cared that he said that about that guy? He did. And so players, for the most part, did not want to just be in the locker room and hanging out. Malcolm Butler didn't care because nobody in the media bothered Malcolm Butler. And he knew it. He was a bottom-of-the-roster guy, undrafted out of West Alabama, and so he would be chilling. And it would be 40 members of the media and Malcolm Butler and no one else. Who knows where they were? Working out, training table, maybe there were meetings going on. But there was that undrafted rookie. And me, first year on the beat, well, what am I going to do here? I'm just going to be standing around, just talking to other people in the media. Like, I like those people, but let's go talk to the kid. And so had some really interesting, entertaining conversations with Malcolm Butler, telling me about what it was like at West Alabama and, boy, the workouts and what they were provided in terms of meal plans and nutrition then versus his first year as a pro and everything he was going through. And obviously having no idea that the guy was ultimately going to play in the Super Bowl and make one of the most important plays in Super Bowl history. But it made that moment even more mind-blowing for me, understanding in some really good detail because of him and what he was willing to share over the course of the year, understanding where he'd come from. And so great to see him on Radio Row. He's there just about every year. No Felger. Maz peppered him with questions as to why he didn't play in the Super Bowl a few years after that. Still a great question. Still a great conversation, in my opinion. You can go check out what 98.5 The Sports Hub was able to post from that conversation, but still not a lot of answers there from Malcolm Butler, which shouldn't surprise you. Okay, enough Malcolm talk. Let's get to the mock draft. With the first pick in Mock Draft 3.0, we're calling this our Trenches Draft. This is our post-Super Bowl mock. How could we not make it trenches-focused for the Patriots after just having seen the Eagles win the Super Bowl because of what they had in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line? That's where we're going to focus for New England with this mock draft. If that's what wins, we can't speak out of both sides of our mouth here. Yeah, I want Tee Higgins as much as the next guy. But if that's what wins, and we just saw it play out that way, how can you not try to add there for the New England Patriots, especially given what they have along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball? Offensive line and defensive line. Defensive line, yeah, maybe they've got a little bit more. You could say Devon Godchaux is a player. You could say Christian Barmore, obviously, when he's on the field and healthy, he's a player, although that is clearly a question mark as well right now. Dietrich Wise is a free agent. Keon White, up and down. critical of his own play, critical of the coaching that he got last year. What is he actually going to be? Because he ain't on Christian Gonzalez's level. I know he was walking around with him at the NFL awards at the end of the year, but there's one guy who's already established himself as one of the best in the league at his position in his second year, and Keon White ain't there. And so can he get there? I think he's got the physical talent to do it. Can Mike Vrabel get that out of him? Can Terrell Williams get that out of him? Regardless, add in the trenches and feel pretty good about your draft. I think that should be a sound approach for the Patriots. Obviously depends on what they're able to do in free agency. You don't want to leave yourself with some glaring holes when you get to draft weekend. But if they're able to shore up some of those most obvious, some of those most glaring needs, and then you get to draft day, and in the first round you can take a pass rusher who's young, got a lot of upside, could be a versatile chess piece in your defensive front seven, is going to have football character that is through the roof, and has been honored as the best linebacker in the country by winning the Butkus Award in 2024. I think you should feel pretty good about that. That's exactly what they get in this mock draft 3.0, NBCSportsBoston.com, when the Patriots take Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Now, he's 6'2", but he's 245, pretty good size. He is a thumper as an off-the-ball linebacker, and he's all kinds of explosive off the edge. He looks polished in some ways, too, in terms of how he uses his hands. He has some good length to him in terms of his arm length. Interested to see how he measures at the combine, but it looks like he is long, explosive, relentless, smart, and again, the character stuff that you hear about Jalen Walker is tremendous. And so I'm looking at Mike Vrabel. I'm looking at somebody who, again, is going to want to make statements as to what this team is going to be moving forward, what he wants his culture to be, what he wants this team to be founded upon. And I look at a Jalen Walker and I say versatile, smart, tough, from a big program. Sounds a little bit like Mike Vrabel. I mean, he's not as big as Vrabel was coming out of Ohio State back in the day, and I know Vrabel didn't make an immediate splash, and I know he wasn't a top 10 pick. But I could see Jalen Walker being a Mike Vrabel guy. Now, the Patriots get him at pick number 6 here in this scenario. It's Titans, Abdul Carter, Browns, Travis Hunter. Your 2 blue chippers, gone, off the board. See you later. Giants, pick number 3. They take Cam Ward, the top quarterback, in my opinion, in this year's class. And it's the Raiders who want to trade up with the Patriots to make sure they get Shedeur Sanders. I wonder if anyone is going to be able to fall in love with Shedeur Sanders in that fashion to want to trade up with New England at number 4 to make sure they get him. Would the Saints be willing to do it from number 9 to number 4? The Raiders only have to go from 6 to 4, but in this scenario, you know how things get weird. Things get weird with quarterbacks in terms of trades. You throw your trade chart right out the window because we've seen people trade from 6 to 3 and give away the farm, even though that doesn't seem like a massive leap. This is a move from 6 to 4, and if the Raiders feel like they're in a bidding war with the Saints or anybody else, maybe you could pry their second-round pick, number 37 overall, from Vegas. And that's what the Patriots do in this scenario. Again, it's a mock draft. We're playing around with some different thoughts, some different ideas. We're trying to spice things up a little bit for you here too, but we're trying to make it realistic at the same time. So, at number 5, the Jaguars take Mason Graham, another good player, off the board, but the Patriots are able to take Jalen Walker. And in so doing, they pass on Tet McMillan, someone I know Patriots fans like. They like the idea of that big body receiver, and I get it. They pass on Will Campbell, who the Saints actually in this scenario end up taking. Kellen Moore coming from Philly. Going to want a good offensive line. Makes sense. Kelvin Banks is another tackle off the board at number 10 to the Bears. And you can see the rest of the mock draft on NBCSportsBoston.com, but I will zoom all the way through the bottom of the first round. Some names that Patriots fans might be interested in. At the end of the first round, Matthew Golden, the receiver from Texas, goes to the Steelers at 21. Emeka Ibuka, the receiver from Ohio State, goes to the Broncos at 20. Keep going down at 23. Armand Membu, the offensive lineman out of Missouri. Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Some questions there, but he goes to Green Bay. Josh Connerly, the tackle, who just went to the Senior Bowl, just got blown up by Mike Green out of Marshall. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He was at right tackle. He's really a left tackle. Josh Connerly out of Oregon. He goes 26 to the Rams. Donovan Ezeraku, the edge defender from BC, He goes to the Eagles at 32. They're probably losing Josh Sweat. They pick up another edge defender. They just reload there. Smart by Howie Roseman. So what do the Patriots do with their 2 second-rounders? In actuality, and maybe we'll do another mock that has them doing this in the near future here, but it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to try to package those picks together, or one of those picks as well as a third-round pick, to get back into the first round. If you package both of those together and you are using the draft chart, the Jimmy Johnson chart, you could actually get all the way to 15 potentially with the Atlanta Falcons, which could put you in play for guys like, does Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, make it that far? Boy, I would really think about doing that if I were the Patriots. You get Jalen Walker and Tyler Warren. Those are, to me, 2 of the best 5 players potentially in this draft. If you could get them both, boy, then you'd be cooking with gas. But Shamar Stewart might be available around that range. Defensive lineman out of Texas, 280, unbelievable size and explosiveness. You could use him off the edge. You could use him inside if you really wanted to. Walter Nolan, former 5-star recruit. I have him going to the Bengals here at number 17 overall. Josh Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State, might have been tackle number 1 in this year's class had he not injured his knee back in the fall, but he's coming off an injury, so he slides a little bit here, and he ends up at number 18. But those are the kinds of names who could be in play for you if you're willing to trade back up. They don't do that here, though. They don't get that aggressive. They just sit and pick, and they use the 2 second-rounders that they have in the 30s. And with 37 overall, they take Ariante Ursary, the tackle out of Minnesota, Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year, 6'5", 340 pounds, 34-inch arms, all kinds of length and power at the line of scrimmage. He played left tackle at Minnesota. Maybe right tackle is his best spot in the pros. The Patriots could use both, quite frankly. So depending on what they do in free agency, Ursary, to me, should be in consideration for them at this point in the draft if they still have a need there. I think he would fit really well with the kind of downhill run schemes we've seen from Josh McDaniels in the past. You want to run power, you want to run duo, and you want to put him next to Micah Wenu, especially on the right side of that line, and just get downhill and pummel people. I think he'd be a great fit in that regard. He's a pretty good pass protector, too. He could use some work there. Who couldn't? He's a second-round pick. You're not drafting this guy and hoping he's your franchise left tackle for the next 10 years. It's very rare you find the Matt Lights of the world. You take in the second round, and they become all pros at left tackle. So I'm not saying that's what Ursary will be, but in pass protection, you can find it very easily. Did a pretty decent job against Abdul Carter. Got beat inside a little bit, but he's a fairly quick human being for a man that size. He also held his own at the Senior Bowl. And so I like seeing that kind of performance against high-end competition. Wasn't perfect, and he's not the most coordinated guy in the world, but something to work with there for sure if you're Doug Marrone and the Patriots. At number 38 overall, the Patriots stay in the trenches. Again, this is our trenches mock draft, remember. Jalen Walker, pass rusher, first round. Ariante Ursary, tackle, second round. Then they go Alfred Collins, defensive tackle out of Texas with their second round pick. This might be a little bit early for Alfred Collins, but this is a loaded defensive tackle class, and it depends on what kind of player you want there. But if you're looking to help your run defense, and the Patriots should be, there is no doubt about it, they should be based on what we saw last year, Collins could be their guy. 6'5", 320 pounds, all kinds of length. You could play him all along the interior. You could play him as a nose. You could play him as a 3 technique. You could play him as a 5 technique, a Ty Warren type, a 3-4 defensive end, if you will. I don't know how that's going to fit into Mike Vrabel's defense and Terrell Williams' defense. Are they going to want to get up the field more? Are they going to want more gap penetration as opposed to anchor, two-gapping, controlling your blocks at the line of scrimmage, shedding guards, shedding centers, and making tackles? Or are you looking for quickness? Are you looking for explosiveness? Because if you're looking for explosiveness, quite frankly, Alfred Collins probably isn't your guy. But if you're looking for power, if you're looking for motor, if you're looking for an ability to just overwhelm linemen with your physical traits against theirs, again, another former 5-star guy, then Alfred Collins makes a lot of sense for a team that was 23rd in the league last year in terms of rush yards allowed per game, 22nd in the league in terms of rush success rate allowed, and then in 2024, they were also 21st in rush EPA allowed. So they've got to figure that out. And maybe Jalen Walker is a part of that. Maybe you're willing to use him off the ball on first and second down, and you want to put him on the edge on third down. That's fine with me. You want to use him as a Dante Hightower type. Again, different body types. He's not as big as Hightower, but I think you could use him in that way if you really wanted to. Collins is going to be, at least for now, your pure first and second down, eat up space, dominate at the line of scrimmage type. Blue collar, hard-nosed, know what you're getting, eat your vegetables kind of pick. And I think Vrabel might like that. Between Vrabel and Williams, by the way, you've got two defensive line big brains and guys that are accustomed to developing players along the line of scrimmage on that side of the ball. And so maybe, just maybe, with Collins, they can help work him into a better pass rusher with time because they see that length, they see that motor, and they feel like with just a little refinement, maybe eventually they could use him on third down. Again, he doesn't look like the most explosive cat in the world, but maybe that's something they can help teach too. If it's something as simple as pad level, and I say as simple as, easy for me to say, I don't have to do it. But if they see something that is easily fixed in Collins' game that could help him elevate to a new level, I think this pick in the second round makes a lot of sense. So there's your mock draft 3.0, your trenches draft for the Patriots. You hope they add a receiver. You hope they add a tackle in free agency before they get to this situation. But I like these three players. Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia, Butkus Award winner. Ariante Ursary, tackle out of Minnesota, Big Ten Lineman of the Year. Alfred Collins, defensive tackle, Texas, 6'5", 320 pounds of pure power. Seems like a productive draft, if you ask me. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Next Pats podcast. Thanks for being with us all week. Thanks for consuming all of these episodes. We're coming at you multiple times again next week, so make sure you're keeping an eye out for our next edition of the Next Pats. Please, 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 if you could, rate, comment, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We are going to get to those Apple Podcast comments. We're going to do that on Monday of next week. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears open for that episode. We've got another couple of great interviews to throw at you then. We're going to keep them a secret for now. But believe me, you're going to want to hear them. You're going to enjoy them. Maybe a friend of the podcast pops on. You're going to like hearing from that particular person. It's been a lot of fun putting these together. Thanks so much to everyone who's helping to put these podcasts together on the other side of the camera, if you will. John the Skull Crusher Henry, Ryan Preventure, both of whom were with us in New Orleans on Radio Row, getting things done. Adam Jacey, Annie Hall, Casey Keene, putting these things together. Really appreciate all those people. They are fantastic at what they do. And we're keeping them busy. We're keeping you busy. Hopefully you will be kept busy by listening to more Next Pats next week. We'll talk to you then.